Today it's time for a professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I've got for you is a Terran versus Zerg here on Ephemeron. Now I'm excited for this one because of the player here in the bottom right hand corner. I don't get to cast nearly as many of her games as I would like to. She's an absolute channel favorite. We're looking right here in the bottom right hand corner of Ephemeron inside of the main base of Scarlett. Her opponent, likewise a player I'm a massive fan of. I did get to cast a couple of his games over the last couple of days already, but hey, what can you say? I'm a big fan. Playing with the blue Terran SCVs from South Korea, we have none other than INnoVation. He's nicknamed as the Machine, and for very good reason. Back in the early days of StarCraft, he would win tournaments just by producing more stuff. He didn't have the greatest micro, he didn't have the greatest strategies, he didn't have the greatest control, but he just simply produced a lot of stuff. Now, over the years, obviously, as the skill level has been going up, all of the top-tier Terran players are very good at producing a lot of units, but even these days, if you look at like the mid-game production that he's got, he will barely ever queue up any units, but he will still be producing out of his factories and barracks and starports pretty much 100% of the time, which is very, very difficult to do. It's one of the things that separate the best from the very best. Wait, the other way around. The very best from the best. You get what I'm trying to say. INnoVation, though, is certainly top tier when it comes to macro. Now, these days, he's also got some very good strategies and some really good control and micro as well. So we'll see what he decides to go for right here in this particular match. Actually, on that same note, Scarlett, back in the day, she was one of the very first Zerg players that dedicated a couple of queens to creep spread. This was something that people didn't do in the early days of StarCraft. Nowadays, obviously, that's absolutely unheard of. Pretty much everyone these days is ridiculously good when it comes to creep spread, and you need to be if you want to participate at the highest level, because without it, you're not gonna be able to be successful whatsoever. But back in the day, in the early days of StarCraft, people would just get one queen per hatchery, and that was basically it. I think that Scarlett was the first one to dedicate like 1 or 2 queens to the spreading of creep and like base defense and all that. And that was mind-boggling at the time. It's pretty silly, right? Like, it's like, you know, I look at it right now, and I cringe a little bit, because those games were just such a lower quality when you compare it to the skill level these days as well. Now, INnoVation is actually trying to deny this third base. He's actually fighting, yeah. Okay, that was a mistake. I don't think you want to fight with the SCV. The thing is, you want to deny that drone for long enough so the Reaper can catch up as well and deny the third. Right now, Scarlett wasn't actually harmed at all. I mean, yeah, the drone took a little bit of damage, but I mean, that one's literally turning into a hatchery right now, so it's not going to have much of an issue there whatsoever. Plus, with the Reaper actually now going all the way back home, she's going to be able to get that creep tumor up absolutely uncontested. Now, one of the developments recently in the Terran versus Zerg matchup is the advancement of mech. All of the Terran players, once again, are meching it happen. I'm sorry, it's the worst pun. I enjoy it, though. They are absolutely enjoying the matchup once again, playing with that mech army as of the new patch, and we'll actually see right here if INnoVation decides to go for that mech style as well. If he does decide to go that direction, I'll talk about it a little bit more. But as of right now, I've seen a couple of the top-tier European Zergs, or top-tier European Terrans rather, have like a 70 to 80% win rate against Zerg, against other top-tier European Zergs as well, and they're very, very good at that matchup in particular. A couple of days ago, though, I casted a game of INnoVation versus Serral. And, well, let's just say that Serral has a bit of a different approach than most Zerg players, as he really focuses on a micro-heavy army as well. And let's be honest, most of the Zerg players aren't as great at micro as they are at macro. At the very least, not compared to the likes of Serral and Raynor. Alright, so it is going to be a very greedy opener here from INnoVation. So this is one of the greediest ways to open up whatsoever, right? Like, he's basically got nothing. So he's already got a third command center, morphing into an orbital command right now. He's going to the fusion core, but he's doing this off of 1 Marine, 1 Reaper, and then 4 Hellions. If that were to be an attack at this point, he'd be dead. Like, this would be game over right here. Thing is, Scarlett is not a player who really does a lot of scouting. So, for example, Serral still loves going for that Nematized Carapace upgrade early, where he decides to go for the Overlord speed, and he scouts around, and he tries to punish players, depending on whether or not they are playing greedy. You can see right here, though, Scarlett is going for one of those, like, jack-of-all-trades kind of builds. So basically what she's trying to do is she's trying to be safe against everything. She knows that everything is kind of normal over here. She's probably expecting a third base to come up, although INnoVation has been favoring fast 3 bases here no matter what. But rather than investing the resources into Overlord speed, which is 100 to 100, she's just simply investing those resources into, indeed, blind spore crawlers. We see the hatchery morphing into a lair at a very normal time. We see the bailing nest coming up as well. And she's basically just playing safe against practically everything that the Terran player can throw at her. And that now also allows her to spend a lot of attention on that creep threat. And even though she was known for it back in the day, she's still very, very good at just simply spreading the creep all around. I'm actually quite surprised, though. She hasn't decided to send a Zergling up towards the third base whatsoever. I mean, that seems like a bit of a no-brainer. Anyways, battlecruisers. Still very popular, even though they got nerfed a little bit. First one is gonna come out here in a little bit. We do usually see players going up to like 2 or 3 these days. So we'll see if INnoVation wants to go ahead and pull that kind of strategy off as well. He is gonna add on additional factories, by the way, so I'll talk about Mech here in just a little bit. Alrighty. There's the teleportation, straight towards the other side of the map. Now the real scary part here is these queens and then these Hellions as well, okay? So it depends on where these units are gonna be positioned. All of the drones actually grouping up together. Hellions threatening to move towards the natural as well. Queens are gonna fight over here instead. A little bit of harassment. And actually, these drones very, very exposed right now at the third base of the Zerg. Ooh, Hellions, though, do decide to turn around. I think he could have dived right on top of it, but the thing is, Scarlett could then go ahead and counterattack immediately, right? A couple of creep tumors do get killed, though. INnoVation is gonna have to fly away. And even though that looked very dangerous there for just a second, only 2 workers ended up going down. That's really not that much. It is, by the way, gonna be a second battlecruiser coming up as well as the Yamato cannon upgrade. So very standard. This will now also be scouted here by Scarlett. Okay, so like I mentioned, a lot of the Terran players right now are enjoying the mech style once again, and they are having ridiculous win rates with this strategy on the ladder. The reason for that is, it's a couple of things, okay? So, in the previous patch, there were a couple of very popular builds. First off, we had Nydus Swarm host. Now, Nydus Worms were indeed nerfed a little bit, making that strategy weaker overall. Secondly, we had that very turtley Zerg style that I personally really dislike, where the Zerg players basically would go up against like Brute Lords, or they would go all the way up to like Brute Lords and then Infestors. Now Infestors no longer have their Infested Terran ability. Neural Parasite was reduced by 1 range as well, making them just not as good of a choice as they once were. They now have a new terrible ability called Microbial Shroud. It's not even worth using. So we haven't really seen a lot of Infestor play in general. Last but not least, and this is a very significant change too. Oh, hold that thought. There is going to be a little bit of harassment here. INnoVation, though, just trying to do a little bit of creep cleaning. Yeah, this shouldn't really do too much. Last but not least, the final set of changes that's really critical to point out as well, and I think this is actually one of the most significant changes, other than, of course, the Swarm Host Nydus style that we will see coming up right here for Scarlett. It's the Thor and then the Brute Lord as well. So Brute Lords in the past had a leash range of 2 and a range of 10. Basically what that meant is that if you microed them correctly, you could effectively get a range of 12. Nowadays, the leash range has essentially been removed, forcing the Brute Lords to be at 10 ranged. Doesn't sound very significant, but what it ends up meaning is that Thors right now, in their single target damage ability, now outrange Brute Lords. So in the past it was 12 versus 10 range. Or 12 versus 11 range rather. Right now it is going to be 11 versus 10 range. Also on top of that, Thors can now essentially attack twice as fast at half the damage. Ooh, a couple of vulnerable workers over here. There's still a few Infestors. Actually, oh, nicely done. Ooh, she does manage to get a nice fungal growth there. Very risky way of playing it, but hey, if it works, it works. In the meantime, Swarmos are indeed unloading. There's another Nydus Worm going up. That is going to be hitting the third base, or the natural rather, of Terran in a little bit. Let's see how much damage Scarlett can do with these. I think this is going to be okay. It does land in the mineral line though, and if you blink twice, all of those mineral harvesting SCVs are going to be gone. Oh, you know what? I actually thought that INnoVation was dealing with that first wave brilliantly, and then all of a sudden he loses 17 workers. I mean, he didn't pull them away. He like microed them to 1 mineral patch, and that was it. If he just pulled them, I think he would have been in a really, really good spot. Battlecruisers, by the way, did find the second Nydus Worm. Right now we have one going up in the center of the map. The downside of playing this Nydus Worm style with, of course, those swarm hosts is that you max out very quickly. Now, maxing out is not an issue. Oh, she's gonna try and fungal. She's gonna try and fungal. She doesn't have the energy. Oh, she doesn't have the energy for it. Yeah, if you fungal, you actually prevent these battlecruisers from jumping back home. Pretty significant right here to point out as well. INnoVation does see the Nydus Worm. Doesn't actually respond to it whatsoever. This is actually a very scary push. Yeah. Okay, so I was gonna say, if Scarlet sends these towards the natural, that's gonna be a massive problem. A couple of Corruptors right now joining the fray as well, but in the meantime, ooh, the tanks are taking a tremendous amount of damage. Still, though, 4 of them are still available. They're moving up on towards that high ground. One of the BCs running dangerously low. It does have technical jump available, but he does not utilize it. Drones going down, though. That's 15 workers in the blink of an eye. And I think that the 4th base is in a world of trouble. There's no way that that one will sustain itself. But the Swarm host will once again get their Locust off cooldown in just a little bit. And INnoVation should run right now. Yeah, I actually agree with this. Just go back home. I mean, don't sacrifice the better... Yeah, no. Oh! Goodbye. One battlecruiser does indeed get picked off, but if he decides to stay around there, I mean, the Swarmos will kill everything eventually. INnoVation does have 4 bases mining right now on the back of this, which is huge. Effectively right now, 3 base versus 4 base. Once again, though, the Locust, these siege tanks are overstaying their welcome. These Locusts are dealing a lot of damage. A couple of Hellions, though, and a couple of Hellbats do roast most of them. I think, though, yeah, all things considered, the trades here have still been in favor of the Terran, even though 7 siege tanks here in total were picked off by those Zerg units. Now, I like this. Greater Spire is coming up. Broodlords aren't very good, but they're still good when the opponent has no anti-air other than, like, one battlecruiser, right? The thing is, though, as soon as INnoVation sees the Greater Spire, or any Broodlords whatsoever, oh, he's gonna siege, he's gonna start producing Thors. Now, the Thors are scary. The Thors are really scary. I love this, actually. INnoVation actually only sieging up half of the tanks. Most of the Zerg army right now, though, coming from every single side, trying to set up a massive concave to mitigate some of that splash damage that these siege tanks deal. A very critical engagement right here for the Canadian Zerg, and she does manage to clean it up. In the meantime, one Zergling actually being pesky over here in the northern section of the map too. Nydus Worm does get put down as well in that same location. And this is really the moment where Nydus Worm can become very, very scary. There's still 10 of those Swarm hosts available. I like the situation a lot better here for INnoVation. I think he should have run a little bit ago when he was at like 160, 170-ish supply. This is a bit of a risky army to just have out onto the map, right? So what he wants to do, he's playing Nydus Whack-A-Mole. He wants to try and knock down these Nydus Worms before they even appear. But it does force him out to be, you know, somewhere on the map. This is actually a curious Nydus Worm positioning. I guess they could still fly towards natural? Not entirely sure. A few Hellions roaming the map now too. These are headed towards the natural. Oh no, they will head towards the 3rd base instead. Greater Spire still has not been spotted. So how many Thors are there? It's just one big boy. There will probably be about 6 Broodlords here on the map in just a little bit. As soon as Scarlett at the very least sees that this is still mostly just siege tanks, she can definitely still add in a couple of those big flying boys. 15 drones once again end up going down. Locusts, though, now finally make their way to natural, and actually getting this this armory will be huge. Can you attack that? Thank you very much. That +3 vehicle weapons has now been denied. Nydus Worm in the top right-hand corner will also be picked off. And you know what? I still like this position for INnoVation quite a bit better. He's approached maxed out. That upgrade denial is actually huge. He still decides to put the armory in the exact same spot once again. Why did they not just put it over here? Seriously, this space is so much easier to get to. Anyways, here we go. Thor does get picked off. Still a lot of siege tanks are available. INnoVation, a very aggressive stance here in this game. Scarlett taking a very different approach than what, for example, Sarah was doing. Ooh, that could have been a disaster, but it looks like that that upgraded tank ball is going to be fine. Okay, 5 of these Broodlords are now being morphed in. There's still very little anti-air. It's just siege tanks, just Hellions. What exactly is INnoVation going to do against these brutes? He sees them right now for the very first time. Scarlett is smelling blood. The thing is, yeah, Broodlords are extremely slow. So while a couple of siege tanks will likely get killed and maybe a couple other units here as well in the retreat, this is just going to buy time immediately. Look at this. We see the Thors queued up. We see a second. Why are we seeing a second fusion core? This is a thing right now, apparently. We see players going for second fusion cores on accident all the time. He probably wants to make more battlecruisers. But, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. you can get double upgrades going, I guess. This is going to be the timing window, though, where Scarlett has to close this out, right? Because if she continues going like this, she's going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, this is sweet. A lot of siege tanks get caught pretty much for free. Sloppy micro there by INnoVation, working on the rocks in the meantime. Brute Lords are flying forward, and we do now also have a Viper joining the fray as well as those Queens from earlier. Creep spread still looking very good. Planetary Fortress is likely not going to be able to hold here against this Zerg onslaught, but 4 Vikings are being produced at once, as well as 4 big daddy Thors. These Thors are terrifying. They can, like, I've seen a bunch of games, and it kind of hurts my Zerg heart a little, right? I've been playing a lot of Zerg myself. I have been seeing those Brute Lords pop out of the sky like flies. So once again, it's 10 range Brute Lords versus 11 range Thors. It's huge. It's a massive difference. If you once again get that upgrade, that would be so silly. All right, here we go. Ooh. These are in a bit of a weird spot, though. One of the Thors does get picked off right there by a couple of roaches. We do see the parasitic bomb right there on the Viking. A couple of siege tanks, though, do siege up in a good spot, and there's really not that much anti-air here. Parasitic bomb is actually going to take care of that Viking as well. Okay, no. it's 5 health. But still, it's going to take forever. Cleaning up these Brute Lords. Reinforcing Terran units, though, are moving down the ramp. And these Thors are going to have to run for their life. Base was once again resecured. INnoVation does still have the northern base, too. Scarlett, though, in the meantime, has been expanding on her side once again, but she doesn't have that much economy. Only 70 workers here in total for the Canadian Zerg. And I kind of feel like the time of Swarmos is in the past. But she doesn't really have the money right now to transition. Once again, I feel like this armory is going to be in trouble. Ay. What's with that positioning? It's so vulnerable. Like, the most attackable bases on this map are this one, this one, and then, like, right over here. Like, those are the most locust to bull. That's not even a word, but that's a very easy way to... Why would you not just position them over there? I don't get it. Can a Terran player please explain this to me? I see this all the time. I guess it's just the force of habit, but it seems like such a thing that's so easy to fix. I mean, Nydus Worms don't generally go up in the main, and if that's the case, you know, losing the upgrades are probably the least of your problems. But anyways, here we go. Terran's once again maxed out. This time around, it's not just siege tanks and Hellions anymore, it's also a bunch of Thors added into the mix. Nice set of corrosive bows actually slowing this one down. There's a few of these Brute Lords still available, but this is a maxed out Terran army going up against a maxed out Zerg. Scarlett right now utilizing those Locust waves a little bit early. I think that one of these Thors will end up going down. Second Thor might also get picked off. But the majority of the Locusts are gone right now, and this is probably the moment that INnoVation is looking for. Nice piles there on that one Widow Mine. This is when the Terran army is scary, though. While these Locusts are on cooldown, he's got about a 20-second timing attack window where he can push forward aggressively. Once again, those corrosive piles are actually huge. Nice micro here as well on those Brute Lords. They don't have the leash range anymore, but they can still be very useful when microed. This looks like an F2 army right here, right? Just the whole army moving all at once. Those corrosive balls were great at buying time because they forced the Terran player to turn around. Right now, the majority of the Ravagers are gone, and you can see the Terran army is actually now easily withstanding that Locust wave as well. Hellbats in the front, a couple of Hellbats in the middle of the army as well. They are roasting away very quickly at that Zerg force. INnoVation, not even bothering to siege most of his tanks anymore. He does get a fungal growth right now on him, but he's got an extremely terrifying army. And you can see the Thors just picking off everything in a matter of seconds. They attack so very quickly. Look at the Brute, look at the Brute. It's gone. Look at this. Oh, it's nuts. All right, so here we go. I think this is a final stand for Scarlett. She's trying to get rid of this Terran army that's right on her creep. Locust Wave likely will come off cooldown once again. They quickly pop inside of the safety of that Nydus Canal. Roaches, though, are the reinforcement measure right now. You can see the Thors just simply pick up all of those Locusts. Oh, that's what was killing a lot of those Locusts as well. In the past, it was primarily just the Vikings. But right now, the Thors, since they deal half damage but shoot twice as fast, they are actually ridiculously good when it comes to fighting that Locust army. Whew. I did not really consider that. So this game was actually played before Serral versus INnoVation. So I think this was like a week or so before Serral versus Inno. I think that this style that Scarlett is playing here, where you focus on the Roach Ravager into like Swarm Host Locust kind of style, I think it is good against like mid-tier Terran players. I don't think it's going to be very good against the best of the best. See, the thing is, you can't really out-multitask INnoVation. He's known as the machine for good reason, right? He's not going to be out-multitasked very easily. I think the correct approach when it comes to playing against that Terran Mech army is the one that Serral plays. I think the one where you focus on a lot of Hydra, Lurkers, and then Vipers as well, and to try and outposition and outpace the Terran player while also outproducing them at the same time. It's a difficult style to play. It's very, very different than the Brute Lord Infestor era. I'm personally a little bit worried for the state of TVZ, even though the top-level Zerg players, like for example Raynor and Serral, kind of make it work. I'm a little bit worried. Just like my concerns for late-game ZVP, I'm a little bit worried for what the meta will look like in about a year from now, because Terran players are getting better and better when it comes to facing off against that Hydra, Lurker, Viper style. But I guess only time will tell. I will be honest with you though, this is a stupid amount more exciting to watch than that really boring Brute Lord Infestor era, right? I mean, come on, the Brute Lord Infestor era where Zork basically just gets like 10 Brute Lords and then starts turtling, going up to 40 freaking Infestor. That was lame. That was lame. I'm glad we got something different. And while I do have my concerns, I'm excited to see what the pros will come up with. I hope that you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Hit the little bell icon as well, so you get notifications as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you very much. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you once again in the next one.